Well, my friends, my guest today has spent years helping people rediscover purpose in their work, move from paycheck to purpose, and stop drifting through careers that don't fit who they're wired to be. He's a national radio host, serving as host of the Front Row Seat podcast and frequent co-host of The Ramsey Show. He's a best-selling author of books such as The Proximity Principle and his most recent, Finding the Work You Were Wired to Do. At the end of the day, he's one of the leading voices on calling, clarity, and career. Ken Coleman from Ramsey Solutions is with us today, and this is a conversation about meaning, resilience, leadership, burnout, and doing the work you are actually made to do. Ken, my friend, welcome to Build Different. Thank you so much for joining me.
Glad to be with you. Thanks for having me.
You know, Ken, as I mentioned before I clicked record, my dad, Dr. Tim Clinton, is just grateful for you, your voice on leadership, your voice on meaning and purpose, especially within the workplace. He sends his regards, but the Clinton family has a lot of love in our heart for the Coleman family. Let me say this up front. You have had a front row seat to some very special people. God is doing something special through your life, your leadership at Ramsey Solutions, through the Front Row Seat podcast and more. Ken, I'd like to hear up front just what is it that really excites you and what makes you tick for such a time as this?
Well, I think a lot of things excite me, but, I think in the workspace, outside of family relationships and things of that nature, I love helping people awaken to the awareness that they deserve to have. We have so many mixed messages that come our way through the evil one, and when someone can see how they're uniquely wired, that they are truly unique, that they have not only a unique makeup but a unique purpose, and they begin to realize that and see themselves as God the Father sees them. Yeah. And that's the way I see my work, as being somebody who's just an illuminator, maybe turning the mirror around and letting them see themselves. That to me is the most exciting work that I get to do. It's really the work of a coach to just help people see through asking deep questions of others or of those folks. And when the light goes on, that light bulb of just true awareness, it's a beautiful thing to see.
It is a beautiful thing. Ken, as I mentioned, you're a leading voice on calling, clarity, and career. A lot of your conversations try to get the most out of people, like you said, helping them experience greatness. A biblical definition for greatness is experiencing all that God has prepared for them. You've had the opportunity of literally sitting in the front row. Such a cool format, by the way, in your podcast, having people right behind you and taking notes and all these different things. I'd love to hear up front any interesting lessons that you've learned as of recent, even from your show, as you're taking notes, just gleaning from the wealth of wisdom of the guests that you have on.
Oh, every episode, I close the episode with, a very specific takeaway. So, yes. If I were to look at every episode, without notes in front of me, there's so many takeaways. I think, one of the most recent ones that really stood out to me, Jesse Cole, who is the founder of Banana Ball, the Savannah
Yes.
Bananas. A lot of people tend to maybe marginalize him because of the bright yellow outfit. But, he said marketing doesn't replace attention. And, he's a great attention grabber from everything that they do. They have such a unique product, and it's exploding in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And so I think that was something that was very interesting to me from a variety of ways. I don't always take everything that I hear in the business context and just leave it there. Many times I'll put it into a personal context. And I think attention, to the right messages, attention to the right actions, that was something that really stuck with me as a really broad but also deep application. That's just one example. We've got so many shows that we've just done recently that are in the can that have yet to come out, so I don't want to spoil any of those. Jimmy John, the founder of Jimmy John's sandwiches chain, he's now a billionaire. He said something so simple, and I've heard other people say it, but he crystallized it, talking about leaders need to manage, and that you are truly in the business, hands-on, aware of what's going on. That kind of hands-on leadership really is the difference maker in any organization, whether it be a for-profit or a nonprofit. So 2 examples, but I am learning alongside the audience, which is why,
Yes.
if you were to see the interviews as they're laid out in front of me versus how they end up,
Yeah.
many times they look very, very different because I am allowing myself to be present in the moment and make sure that I'm always taking the posture of student on behalf of the audience.
Well, I love the approach that you bring to it. Again, I'm a big fan of the Front Row Seat podcast, thank you for the way that you do that. Just even those lessons that you just shared with us right there about this idea of culture being shared belief, but then also this idea of never expect from people that which you are unwilling to inspect. Be in the managerial position, the nitty-gritty aspects of life. Ken, when I think of work here for a second, because that's kind of the premise of our conversation that we're going to have today, work serves a great purpose, especially in the kingdom of God. Proverbs chapter 12, verse 27 actually says that diligence is the precious kind of golden, let's just say, nugget of wisdom for those wise men. Like, it's the one thing that we can hold on to. Work is really important. In some of the human flourishing research, Tyler Vanderweel out of Harvard, Harold Koenig out of Duke, Byron Johnson out of Baylor, they've found that a pathway to human flourishing, there's 4 of them: faith, family, education, and work. There's a reason as to why we work. I'd love to hear from you, just the man, especially at Ramsey Solutions, that might not be the money guy, but a guy that helps us understand that money and work, they coincide. You can't have a conversation about one without the other. Talk to us about, why do you think God made work such an important thing for man to do?
Because he worked. The creator of the universe, it's documented that he worked in 6 days to create the world, and on the 7th day he rested. And I think it's funny that sometimes we overlook the fact that the Almighty, all-powerful God himself rested because he worked hard. And even after the fall, so we see before the fall, God worked himself. So our creator created. Creation is work. So we see that model right out of the gates. Then, even after Adam and Eve sinned, he still says to them, go and subdue the earth, right? And in some translations, subdue is create, go create. So go create a population, right? So go procreate, go create. And so it's evident in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, if we're made in the likeness of God, which we are, Imago Dei, then we are essentially created to work. It's why we long to make things, to do things, to make a difference. So it's in our spirit. Yes. And so you can't deny that. So when someone finds that work for the first time that they really are good at and that they really enjoy, that creates a result that they care deeply about, then that is where you experience a form of euphoria.
Yes.
And to me, that is spiritual alignment. It is a soul craving that was given to us by our Creator.
Ken, talk to us a little bit, because we understand that work matters, and such a beautiful and eloquent answer that you just gave us, but at the same time, finding the right work, as you would like to say, finding the work that you were wired to do matters as well. I'm just thinking about you and your story. I did my research on you. You really weren't supposed to be here at Ramsey Solutions, right? I know that there was a political opportunity. That was kind of the segue that you were going toward. But then all of a sudden, as God so divinely does, he redirected your steps, and you had to take a leap of faith to say, you know what? I'm going to give up on one dream to pick up another God-ordained one. Share with us a little bit about your story, if you would.
Well, I just thought at the age of 16 that my future was going to be in politics, and felt that calling and honored that and pursued it, and was working for the governor of Virginia at 22 and had a pretty bright political future ahead of me, certainly in the campaign side of things and in the governance side of things, had I wanted that. And yet I felt like I was going to run for office, and so I wanted to get out and get a business background, have some real life leadership, where you're creating jobs. And that was the script. And so I played the script out until my heart changed through a series of just really disappointing moves by leadership that I thought, this is maybe not the place where the influence really can be had. And as I began to question that part of society where I would do work, I began to question the overall role. And that was a very confusing time for me, But as God directed me and my heart away from one path towards the path that I'm on now, I can now look back and see that the political work that I did was certainly training for what I do now. And I think that the area I'm in now is far more influential than the political space, so I'm grateful for that. I still, I'm a political animal, and I can't say I enjoy watching it anymore because it's become so toxic on both sides of the aisle.
Yep.
I think there's such a lack of leadership on both sides of the aisle, so I'll offend everybody right now.
That's right.
I don't see that we have true statesmen, and I don't see that there's a true desire to do what our founding fathers intended for politicians to do, which is that it would be a part-time role and not one that makes you wealthy, but one that is certainly worthy. But we've lost sight of that. And so God confirmed all of those initial feelings, and so very happy that I'm in the place that I'm in. But, while I would not have designed it the way it happened, it's not something I thought of as a 16-year-old. The parallels are there because I wanted to run for office. I wanted to create policy on behalf of people. I wanted to speak, for freedom and individual liberty on behalf of people, all those things. And I still do, just not in a political context.
Exactly. God, right? He so brilliantly orchestrates our steps, and he really does have that plan and that purpose for our lives if we continue to put our trust in sole reliance on him. Ken, as I'm just thinking about somebody out there that might be listening to the show today, and they might be showing up at work, and you know what, they're just punching a clock. It's not really something that makes them tick. It's not really something they're passionate about. But at the same time, it's work. It's putting food on the table. It's helping support different things. At one point, maybe they found a vision or some passion in what they were doing, but for some reason, there's been this time now where they're unsure of if this is the path that God has called them to. And I will say this, I think there's a big difference between comfort and calling. For some people, it might be an uncomfortable season. It might be a difficult year. It might be a difficult month, but that doesn't mean that maybe they're being called away. For others, it might mean that God is truly calling them elsewhere. I'd love to hear from you, sir. How do we decipher the difference between comfort and calling?
Well, calling is missional. Comfort is emotional. So that's the one that sticks out to me. I don't know that they could be any more different, because when I'm called to something, it's like my children, if we were walking in a state park or something, or a United States park, and there's a trail, and one of the kids gets out of my eyesight for a moment, and I can't see them. I know they haven't gone far, but as a parent, I'm a little concerned, and I hear them call my name, Daddy, Daddy, or whatever, and then in that moment, there's only one thing on my mind, and that is answering the call of my scared and lost child. That's just one example. But the calling, as we refer to it, is where God is saying, come here. I'm working over here, and I want you over here, and this is what I'm calling you to do. I think of the Old Testament when Samuel wakes up multiple times at night, and he keeps going to Eli, or I believe it was the high priest, and finally Eli realizes what it is the next time, on the third time that God calls, says, "Speak, Lord, thy servant heareth." I think of that. So the calling, we are responding to God, and so it's a much higher request, and so it's, you are called to something. Comfort is an emotion, and it's how I would describe it. If I'm comfortable, I would describe that as an emotion. And so I don't know that you will ever be comfortable while pursuing a calling. I don't know that exists. Maybe temporarily if you got a really nice mattress.
Right.
But when you are awake, you should not be comfortable.
That's a deep word. I really like that. The idea that comfort is emotional, calling is missional. It's God calling you somewhere else, and then all of a sudden, as you have this mission and this alignment with that calling, he gives you purpose through that work and through that pursuit.
I would add to that too. Calling, he's also calling us to be like him.
Yes.
So I don't want us to totally miss that one is vocational. I'm talking about missional. Surely that's vocational, but also that is a spiritual calling to be like him. And so to be Christ-like is not easy. So you cannot be comfortable if you're trying to become a disciple. So I will add that one as well.
There's a reason why he said, follow me, right? Because it is a pursuit every single day. Pick up your cross, bury that cross, and run with it daily, right? The race that he has set before you. Like you said, it's vocational. Comfort. There's no comfort whatsoever there. Ken, I'd like to hear from you, somebody that coaches, that works with a lot of high-capacity leaders. You've had the opportunity of gleaning from the wealth of wisdom and experience of people that you've already mentioned and so many more. When it comes to why do you think people, besides comfort, besides the emotions, besides maybe fear, imposter syndrome, what really makes people stay stuck or just settle for average, less than their best, maybe not ever experience the greatness that God has really desired for their lives?
Practically, we'd rather be miserable than uncomfortable. So we've been talking a little bit about comfort.
Yeah.
And the reason people stay stuck is because we'd rather be miserable. In other words, we'd rather deal with the known, even though everything around us is creating misery. We aren't growing. We aren't progressing forward. And we're terrified of the unknown, which is uncomfortable. Right. So that's why, practically, spiritually, it's because we don't have any faith. Hebrews says, without faith, it is impossible to please God. And so God is asking us to step out on a daily basis into the unknown, and it is when we step out into the unknown that he can step in, and then he gets the glory, not us. So when that scripture verse says it is impossible to please God, that is not a recommendation. It's not a theory. That's a fact.
Yes.
He wants us to step out so that he can step in. So it's spiritual and practical, but psychologically is what I mean by the practical side. This is the world you all live in on a daily basis. People would rather deal with the devil they know than the devil they don't. And so that's why I've said a million times, people would rather be miserable than uncomfortable because they can bear with the misery. They have figured out a way to medicate through the misery. But boy, oh boy, when you step out into the unknown and challenge yourself, try something new, learn something new, go somewhere new where God calls you, well, you have to swallow a whole bunch of uncomfortable circumstances and realities. And we humans are terrified of the unknown. I think it's the greatest fear. Fear of failure is up there.
Yes.
Fear of not pleasing is up there. But I think the greatest fear that holds humans back is simply the fear of the unknown.
Can I ask you, as you've maybe wrestled with the fear of the unknown and a lack of certainty, especially like jumping from maybe one career path and one dream to another, right? Potentially God orchestrating your steps, interviewing Dave Ramsey, and then all of a sudden, as he so beautifully intertwined your guys' paths, here you are co-hosting the show, doing so many amazing things in leadership, like you said, having more influence in the sector that you're in today than any potential political sector could have ever afforded you. As you navigated that unknown, how did you find clarity in the midst of uncertainty?
Well, a couple things. One, a lot of prayer and just asking God to reveal, to show me what he needed to show me, what he wanted to show me. And then I think, again, at some point realizing God is not going to lay out a perfect little playbook. You know, I think when I was much younger father, my kids are now, older, but I remember playing Madden for the first time with my boys or NCAA football, and teaching them how you could scroll through all the different plays and teaching them, okay, you look at this play, and if you click on X, it's going to run play X there, and then you see where the receivers are going to go or whatever. But it's all laid out for you.
Yep.
Well, God doesn't do it that way. So while prayer is vital that God reveal, he's not going to reveal everything to you. Sometimes he'll reveal a lot, but there's always going to be a need to trust him. So part of God answering our prayers is he'll show us just enough, to get us to go, okay, you're there. You're in the details. And so I'm going to take this next step, but I don't know what the next step looks like after that. So for me, it was prayer, but it was also being very, very strategic to take calculated risks. In other words, I think this is where free will comes in.
Yes.
A lot of times people hear free will in the Christian world, and it's all about predestination and salvation,
Right.
but we miss a lot that God gives us free will to make decisions. And it is in us realizing how much free will we have that if we really grasp it, then we see that one of the great parts of testing your faith and growing your faith is to exercise the free will you've been given. And so, I was very good at calculating risk to go, okay, I'm going to take this risk. I don't know how it's going to play out. God hasn't made it super clear to me how it's going to play out. And yet I think he wants me to do it. And I'm going to try to use as much discernment and wisdom and common sense that are all gifts of the Father. And I'm going to make the best decision I can. I'm going to go for it, knowing that if it is his will that these moves pay off, great. If it's his will that these moves don't pay off, and I learn something, so one of my old bosses, John Maxwell, wrote the book, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And so that was my simple approach. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, not a great strategist, but I do feel like I have the gift of discernment, and I feel like, I'm pretty decent at common sense. Doesn't make me special. Yeah. But the key is that when you take those two things and you put them together, then you say, okay, I got to act. And the very action of taking a step is faith. And then I think God has just honored that. And I could tell story after story after story where the most unbelievable things happened as a result of me just continuing to show up. And some of the biggest breaks in my career, biggest interviews I've ever gotten to do were not planned. It looked as though it was a fortunate, circumstance to fall my way. Well, I know better than that, and I think God just wants us to keep showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up. And then when we don't want to show up. And he just knows what he's doing. And when we least expect it sometimes, that God moment or that train that God sent just shows up at the train station. And it's a beautiful thing when you watch him work. And I need to be reminded all the time that he's constantly in the details. And he doesn't need me in the details. He just needs me to show up and be present.
Come on, Ken. You're preaching now. There's so many different things that I'm writing down, taking away from this. Just this idea of trusting God in the details. Again, taking that first step of faith, which that is where faith is found, right? It's forged through action. But at the same time, having the discernment to pray, surrounding yourself with the right people, and then just having some common sense in knowing that, you know what, God is putting us on the right path and trusting that process every day. Something, Ken, that I struggle with as it relates to work, and I'm sure it's something a lot of men struggle with, is being able to turn it off. I was raised in a home growing up playing sports, like competition runs through my DNA. And so flipping the switch on, easy thing for Zach Clinton. Sometimes it's hard, though, to turn the switch off when I go home, to remind myself that I'm also building something at home. There's a mission at home with my bride, with my future family, that I want to make sure that I'm giving every ounce of my energy, even more, to my Jerusalem, and not just my Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. I don't just want to build at work, I want to build at home. Ken, help speak to a man, to a woman out there today who finds rest as unproductive.
Well, you're missing it. You're fooling yourself, and thus you look foolish and you're acting foolish. You're too busy being a human doing instead of a human being. And I think it's very important that we reevaluate what we call successful. So those emails or those social media comments or the phone calls that you're wanting to have at night when you should be in the house with your family, totally present, none of that's going to matter when you're on your deathbed. None of it. None of it's going to matter when times are tough. None of it's going to matter. The only thing that matters is those core relationships that God has honored you with and stewarded you with. And now you have to take over that stewardship. And I think it's as simple as that, to go, how much better do you think your life is? And I'm not saying this critically, but I would look at you and go, all right, Zach, over the last 5 nights, Monday through Friday, when you're having a hard time turning it off, if I were your coach and we were meeting privately, I would say, show me what you did. Let's pull up your emails. Let's pull up your texts. Let's look at the amount of time you spent on your phone this week, and let's just look at that. Okay. And let's see what the ROI is on that long term.
Right.
Like, how much is that going to matter at Christmas when your kids are 20 and 21 and 22 and you want them coming back? I think that's what you have to ask. And then I think you have to also, in light of that, also go, okay, am I a human doing or a human being? And if I'm a human being, I'm actually a husband and a father and a son and a brother first.
Yes.
I'm a coworker after all of that other stuff. And you know the relationship data from Harvard, the longest relationship study. You talked about human flourishing.
Yep.
You know, the secret to a healthy and successful life is the quality of your relationships, not the quality of your PowerPoint presentations, not the amount of money in your 401k. Yep. So that would be my response to you. If you're having a hard time turning it off, the question is what's beneath all that? In other words, what are you chasing? What are you chasing that is requiring you to work at night and weekends instead of be at home and be present at home? What are you chasing? Because there's your ghost. And I will tell you, I have no problem with this. And by the way, anybody who works with me at Ramsey can tell you that I am absolutely telling you the truth. Yeah. They never get emails or texts from me on weekends or nights. Just don't do it. And I completely turn it off.
Yes.
Because I just made a decision very early on, because it took us 7 years to start a family. And I wanted it so bad. I wanted it more than anything in the world. So when I got it, I was like, I'm not going to be that dad whose kids don't know him because he's always stuck in his phone and everybody else is more important than them. Not going to be that guy. And to this day, I'm almost an empty nester now, and I'm still not that way. I mean, I just don't work at nights and I don't work on weekends. Now, there's occasional, maybe a quick burst or something that I got to respond to. But I just got back from a trip on a Thursday and a Friday. I was out speaking in San Diego, and I got to spend 2 extra days with my wife out there, and I unplugged. And you can pull up my phone records and my inbox, and you can look at how much work I did while I was there. And it was little to none.
I love that.
Because I was with my wife. So I keep reading stories. One other thing I want to add, I keep reading stories about these NFL coaches, and, I like Mike McDonald. He's a former Michigan coach and defensive coordinator for the Ravens. Now he's the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah. And as we record this, that Super Bowl will be played in just a couple of days. I don't know when this is going to come out, but he went viral. You can go look this up. He went viral last week for talking about how intentional he is 30 minutes a week to spend time with his son. One 30-minute period. And he's a good guy. I'm sure he's a really good coach, but man, I was so sad watching that. Yeah. And I'm going, there's no NFL job that is that important. So, but there's become this expectation in coaching circles that you got to be at the office until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night and then back at 7. Why? What are you doing? It's not that important.
Right.
I'd love to follow these guys around and expose this nonsense, because what it's going to do is continue to create broken families. So, you're just not that important. Nobody cares about the email or the phone call or the social media post you're going to send after. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. I'm sorry.
It's so true. I'll never forget Dr. James Dobson sitting down across from me and sharing really the same amount of wisdom that you just shared. And he said, Zach, life will trash your trophies. At the end of the day, all that matters is who you loved and who loved you. My dad is a great example of that, Ken. Somebody that has worked really hard, but someone that prioritized never missing a practice or a game or a meal. I mean, that dude was the king of a red eye or a down and back, whatever the flight looked like. He would get the job done, but he would prioritize my mom, my sister, myself. Those are the memories that I have etched in the back of my mind. Someone, I remember, once said that the only person that will remember how hard you worked 20 years from now is your kids. And make sure that your kids have a good memory. That's really what I'm hearing you say. 2 follow-up questions I have for you, Ken. The first one is, when I'm just thinking about work leaders that are potentially listening to this interview, somebody that's gleaned a lot from your leadership wisdom and just your wealth of experience, something that we try to create, even at AACC, is let's just say, an atmosphere where people are celebrated and not just tolerated. Because we want people to enjoy coming to work. We don't want this just to be another thing that you do just because it gives you a paycheck. We want it to give you purpose in a relational manner, because that's where I think really is at the root of resilience in general. Speak to a leader out there about the significance of making sure that the workplace that they are affording employees and different people that work alongside of them, make it the most meaningful space possible.
Yeah, Gallup has done the most unbelievable work on employee engagement for decades, and every couple of years they'll put out a new update. And the latest report that they put out on employee engagement, came down to 3 things that leaders needed to do, and they were talking about these as human needs that every employee has. And so this is the answer to your question. So leaders need to understand that there's 3 human needs. Number 1, people need to see purpose and meaning in their work. How does their role, no matter how significant in the organization, how does it fill a specific need? So if you think about Ramsey Solutions, how does a programmer here who's writing code see purpose and meaning in their work? Well, their leaders got to let them know that when you're writing code and then this turns into this product, or we put this show out and someone gets out of debt and they break the bondage of debt the rest of their life and change their life, you guys had a role in that. Wow. So number 1, people need to see meaning and purpose in their role at work. So show them how it's missional and playing into the bigger vision of the organization. 2, they need to receive recognition for their work. You need to recognize them. You touched on this in forming your question. They need to be recognized, right? They need to be recognized publicly and privately for their contribution. We can't forget, and you know this in the psychology world, that every man and woman that is underneath your leadership is still a little boy or a little girl, ultimately wondering, do you love me? Do I matter? Yes. And so for the boss, it's hey, do I matter to you? So they need recognition for their unique contribution. And then the 3rd human need is a relationship with their leader. Now, this is not best friend stuff. We're not saying that you got to be best friends and vacation together. Obviously, that's not realistic, and that's not a healthy relationship. What we are talking about here is that coach or mentor. They desire to be poured into, to be instructed, to be corrected in a loving, healthy way. Yeah. So if you meet those 3 human needs, here's what's going to happen. You have a very healthy relationship with the employees that you lead. And as a result of that healthiness, because of their needs being met, they have a very loyal and productive relationship with you in the company. When people leave companies, they don't leave companies, they leave leaders. And I want you to catch the significance of that statement. People don't leave companies, they leave leaders. And it's not, most of the time, something that you as a leader did to them. It's mostly because what you didn't do for them.
Right.
And so back to the 3 human needs. Show them, make sure that they see meaning and purpose in their work. 2, they need to be recognized for their unique contribution. And number 3, they need a relationship with you to where they feel like you value them. And taking on that role of coach or mentor is exactly the way to do that. So the answer to your question is meet those 3 human needs. That's a game changer. And by the way, I would also tell you this. Engagement's going to go up. This came out of the engagement study. And obviously when engagement goes up, productivity goes up, and profitability goes up, right? Yes. Okay, so we go, oh, yeah. Everybody wants that, right?
Right.
But this is the competitive advantage because 2 things are going to happen as a result of those 3 outputs: greater engagement, greater productivity, greater profitability. Well, the magic in this is longer retention. They will stay with you longer. And it's also going to give you a recruiting advantage because you get your best people from your current people, because they're going to go, hey, you need to come work over here because of this environment. This is a great culture. So I would tell you, you want to create a winning company, meet those 3 human needs. And out of that is the wellspring of great culture development.
Wow. So much wisdom there, my friend. Ken, I wish I could sit down with you for a day and just pick your brain like this, but I only have time for one more question.
Okay.
It's a question I ask all of the different leaders on the show, and it's if you had one opportunity to share just one final word of hope encouragement and motivation for an audience member out there. And who I really want you to speak to is an audience member that feels a little lost, that feels pretty stuck, that maybe doesn't have their purpose. I'm thinking about the intersection. When I think of purpose, I think it often kind of communicates what you really share in terms of your messaging. The intersection for purpose is found in personality, passion, and sometimes your pains, right? Being able to find the intersection of those things. To the person out there who's stuck, who's lost, who's wandering, who doesn't feel like they have a purpose, what's a final word of hope to help them look, love, live, and lead a little bit different from the inside out?
Well, first have to identify what emotion you're really feeling. You know, what are you feeling? You know, is it anger? Is it sadness? You know, is it loneliness? Yeah. You know, this is where I would get with a professional. If you're someone who's identifying the way that Zach has laid out, I think getting with a professional therapist just to get a reset. Someone who's a professional at seeing and guiding, someone who's used to seeing and guiding, and they can help you get below the surface. It's like going to a doctor and saying my knee is sore, but walking out of the doctor's office having no evidence or plan to gather why the knee is sore. So I think it's really important, and I'm talking about awareness here. And sometimes you got to get with a professional or certainly a pastor. So let's get awareness of why I'm stuck. Because stuck is not a state. It's not a state of emotion. Stuck is just, I'm not moving forward because I'm paralyzed by something else. So that stuck is just kind of, all right, I'm in a holding pattern, and I'm holding because I feel more control where I'm at as opposed to where I need to be. So let's call that what that is. So that's why I said the first step is to get some awareness. And then once we get awareness of what's causing us to be in a holding pattern, let's go get healthy, right? Let's fight that false narrative. Let's get the right narrative. So let's get emotionally healthy, which will allow us to create the right mindset to then be able to move forward. And I think once you do those two things, then it comes down to this: move. You know, move. I mean, it's one of my favorite rock songs of all time. Switchfoot wrote it, "Dare you to move." At this point, it's just like, I dare you to move. But only after we've done those first two things. Yep. Because now we're moving towards something. We're not moving away from something. Yes. And I think that you probably got into this place of being stuck because you were running from. And we don't want to do that anymore. We want to get healthy. We want to get clear. We want to see what God has for us. And I would tell you this, that when we get clear on what is holding us back and then how to overcome that, here's what takes place. Once we get absolute clarity on those two things, what's causing the pain and how do I alleviate the pain, now we develop confidence. Clarity breeds confidence, and confidence breeds courage. And so that's the process. So there are going to be multiple times in your life where you will return to what Zach has laid out for us. And it's a great question because we all reach these points in life where we feel stuck. And so what's the answer? Retreat to clarity. Once I get clarity, I will then automatically get confidence. Yes. Confidence of what I need to do, confidence where I need to go. And so I move forward. And as we begin to move forward, we will get threatened again with that fear. But because we are rooted in clarity and now moving in confidence, this is the best part, then courage will take hold when we need it. But you cannot have courage absent of clarity. It is clarity that leads to confidence, confidence that leads to courage. So if that's you today and you feel stuck, I promise you that process will work every time. Because remember this, God is not a God of confusion. He's not the author of confusion. Satan is. And so let's go get clear. And when we get clear, then we begin to see ourselves as Christ sees us, and then we have that confidence, that spiritual confidence, and then that holy courage that can only come from knowing what is right.
Clarity breeds confidence. Confidence breeds courage. Ken Coleman, my friend, I'm grateful for you. Again, your wealth of wisdom, experience, and knowledge that you are willing to share with me and our audience today. I know my dad, again, sends his regards that he wasn't here a part of this interview, but he's grateful for you and your leadership, as am I, my friend. Thank you so much for your time and your willingness in joining me today.
Appreciate you. It's my honor.